I just saw X and Pearl, and so can you. X is a 2022 slasher directed by Ty West, and it's really great. It feels like a throwback to classic cabin in the woods films of the 70s. It's a very simple horror setup. A small group travels out into the countryside to film a low-budget adult film, and the horror elements come into play with creepy old people. The tension in the story is done extremely well. It skirts this strange line between awkward and funny and intense dread. It's very simple and very efficient. It does bring you back to more dated films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with the dialogue and even the gore being quite campy. Even with the straightforward nature of the story, X is still working on a few weird meta levels. There are ideas of Hollywood and fame and themes of hedonism and jealousy and nostalgia. It comes so close to breaking the fourth wall, but it just dances right around that line. Mia Goth does a great job. She actually plays both characters of the young starlet and the creepy old woman with a tremendous amount of prosthetics on. That might be a spoiler, but knowing that actually adds a good bit to the story. The soundtrack and even the sound design is great. The film does take its time and can feel a bit slow, but the story is still worth it. X gets a 7 out of 10. Pearl is a sequel-prequel to X. It follows the story of Pearl, a young farm girl who eventually turns out to be the creepy old lady in X. But where X is a very effective slasher film, Pearl is much more of a psychological horror. The movie comes across as some sort of demented Wizard of Oz extravaganza. Set in 1918, right near the end of the First World War, the comical or cartoonish elements of the film are turned up a couple notches. The saturation is cranked up, the characters are upbeat and exaggerated. The movie starts off with Pearl singing and performing for her farm animals. There's an actual wishing upon a shooting star, and even a kind of evil stepmother. Even at one point, Pearl is riding around on a bicycle, and it looks exactly like the Wicked Witch of the West. They had to have known what they're doing there. But unlike the sweet and innocent Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, Pearl does some very awful things. Somehow Mia Goth does a much better job in this one. She is at all times childlike, sexual, and still very unnerving. You might be able to make some argument that the characters in X kind of deserve their fate, playing with fire like that, but the people in Pearl are almost completely innocent, even the quote-unquote stepmother. No one really got what they deserved, and that's unsettling. The story is fairly light and easy to predict, but just the character of Pearl is so interesting and at the same time disturbing. That makes up for the other simplicities that surround the film. Pearl gets an 8 out of 10. Go see both of these. It does not really matter in what order. They were a little spooky.